Good afternoon, dear audience. I'm happy to present you my research topic on post-stroke rehabilitation. My name is László Kovács. I'm a first-year PhD student here at the CTM at the Pediatric Center. My supervisor is Miklós Garami, my SMS is Mark Hernátfi, and our statisticians are Gergely Agucs and Boglárka Szentes. Our vision is a future where lost brain functions due to stroke can be restored, and our mission to achieve this is, in the first step, to collect and synthesize all the available evidence on some of the newly emerged rehabilitation techniques. We have two specific questions to deal with this issue, so we have two projects, as you can see here. And now I have a question to you. What is your personal opinion that the lost functions due to stroke are lost forever or maybe not? This is the question of our first project. So as many of you know, stroke is a major problem, the third leading cause of death worldwide, the top leading cause of disability, and it's in fact a jackpot for obtaining disabilities. A person can get during a stroke any kind of disability in any combination in just 1 minute and maybe for the rest of the life. So it's a top problem. And many of you associate stroke with very spectacular symptoms like aphasia or movement disorders, but only a few people know that in 1/3 of the cases, stroke can cause severe cognitive deficits that has a high impact on the quality of the life of the patients, making it more difficult to reintegrate into society. Conventional rehabilitation methods like cognitive training yield only modest gains, and the results are heterogeneous. But in the recent years, some non-invasive brain stimulation methods have emerged, like transcranial direct current stimulation, or TDCS, and transcranial magnetic stimulation, like TMS, which have shown promising results in previous meta-analysis. But there is still a gap of knowledge. Namely, there is no robust evidence regarding the effectiveness in cognitive rehabilitation. We don't know the optimal parameters, and we don't know the subgroups that can benefit the most. Our aim is to fill this gap of knowledge and give the best possible answer based on the current state of the art. And here you can see our question, our framework. Our population are post-stroke patients. The intervention groups are the patients who received the previously mentioned brain stimulation interventions. Our comparator is either sham stimulation or cognitive training, which is the traditional treatment, and our main outcomes are neuropsychological tests measuring cognition. Our hypothesis is that the improvement is significantly higher in the interventional group. Our search key contains 3 domains regarding the stroke, the interventions, and the post-stroke cognitive deficits. During the main selection process, we have selected 56 full text, and the citation chasing is ongoing. Here you can see some of our key articles. 2 RCTs here have shown significant improvement in the interventional group compared to the control group. And regarding the progress, we are currently at the data extraction phase. This phase is ongoing. And I have to tell you another thing. So, fortunately rare, stroke can occur in childhood or in teenagers. This is awful, in my opinion, but there is something really special in these cases. Namely, the prognosis is, in many cases, excellent. For example, many of the post-stroke deficits can completely disappear, and the quality of the life in the later years becomes almost like in the healthy people. And what do you think, what can be the cause behind this? So logically thinking, I thought that there is a radical difference between the prognostic factors in these ages, but what are these prognostic factors? Can they be modified to obtain the desired results or not? This is the question of our second project. And regarding the background, we have to understand one concept, namely the neuroplasticity. This means a system of mechanisms, so it's not a single mechanism, it's a set of mechanisms. And in childhood, the dominant mechanisms promotes development of pathways, while in adulthood, the dominant mechanisms favors keeping these neural pathways. These mechanisms have a wide set of mediators, like the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which we suppose that maybe this is one of the most important prognostic factors, but we are not sure. We have to search and analyze the data. But BDNF is just one factor. We need to do a thorough literature research and detect and list all the possible prognostic factors. So this question has to be redefined soon. And this is our preliminary question on our second project. We want to investigate these prognostic factors, their levels, their presence in post-stroke patients, measuring the rehabilitation outcomes. And here you can see the deadlines for our projects. And I chose this quote. This is my favorite quote. This literally means that a meaningful question is already a half solution. And thank you for your kind attention.
Congratulations on your great presentation. I would like to ask you for the non-invasive intervention regarding to the TMS and TDCS. Which is more effective in your opinion, since you are doing the data extraction, or what's the difference between both of them? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think, so this is my personal opinion, that TMS, so the transcranial magnetic stimulation, is more efficient because of the nature of the mechanisms. So transcranial direct current produces an electrical environment in the extracellular space, which can favors hyperpolarization or depolarization, while the transcranial magnetic stimulation works on the principle of Faraday. So an alternative magnetic field induces electricity both in the extracellular and in the intracellular space. So it can evoke action potential on its own, but this is not the therapeutic dose, but it's much more efficient in stimulating of the neurons.
That's really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I also have a question. First of all, congratulations. I wanted to ask you, what, in your opinion, what are the most important prognostic factors in the post-stroke recovery?
So my first opinion is that neurotrophic factors, because these are much more active, or maybe the organism is much more susceptible for these in childhood, and I think these neuroplasticity mediator molecules like neurotrophic factors. This is my preliminary hypothesis.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one quick, you mentioned nicely that the pediatric strokes might occur somewhere new in a newborn age and a little bit later in adolescence. What do you think? Because I predict that the earlier intervention or any kind of stimulation is better for the outcome. What do you think? Are there, like this non-invasive brain stimulation, we have a possibility to do that in neonates, newborn, small infants, or would it be better? how we can imagine a non-invasive stimulation in a young age when we can't use different stimulations, I guess.
This is a very sensible question because anything that is related to children is much more sensitive, or so it's a hard question, but I think that currently we should not use these stimulation techniques until we don't have enough knowledge on how it works in adults. This is my opinion. Because the central nervous system, as I mentioned in childhood, works according to a different scenario, and we have to know the exact mechanisms, circles, and we have to have a clear view what is going to be happen if we do this. And currently, we don't have this knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also have a question about TMS. I know that it's approved to treat depression and OCD in the United States, but I don't really know about like the stroke rehabilitation. Could you tell us a bit more about that? How you think I mean, I'm not sure if you know about it, but like how the approval is going and if it's like going to be feasible in a couple of years and things like that.
So this is a simple question, but the answer will be complex. Just another fact about the medications. Many medications that have an effect on the central nervous system works in two ways mainly. Either it inhibits some functions or the function of the neurons either activates or stimulates. These stimulation methods can be inhibitory or stimulating. And for example, regarding the TMS, when the frequency of the stimulation is high enough, for example, is above 10 hertz, it can inhibit the neurons because it generates a firing so fast that it puts the neurons into a refractory state. And for example, this hindering of the neural function can, for example, inhibit the healthy part of the brain because, for example, after a stroke, the healthy part of the brain overcompensates the diseased part. And for example, if we hinder this healthy part with this inhibitory stimulation or inhibitory effect of TMS, maybe we leave room for the healthy part to reorganize and to have some functions. And for example, you can activate some brain parts. For example, if the frequency is not that high, it's just like, for example, 1 hertz, it's just a little bit picking that diseased part to be much more active because the firing of the neurons in that case, it's much more difficult because of the injuries.